Greetings and welcome to another episode of Wild Mouse. I'm your host, Taylor Bartle, and today we are heading to a brand new park. I think it's our first Six Flags. Well, no, that can't be right. It's not our first Six Flags park because Elitch Gardens was a Six Flag park and Hershey Park was a Six Flags park. Anyway, it's probably the most well-known Six Flags park because it's Magic Mountain, and today we are specifically talking about a very famous ride that's popped up multiple times in pop culture currently called the New Revolution. Well, technically now called the New Revolution Classic. And I'm joined today by my guest. He is the co-host of the Old Switcheroo podcast. Welcome, Mike Lund.
I am glad to be here and glad to talk about Revolution with whatever name we're calling it.
Yeah, it opened in 1976, which of course was, the bicentennial for the US of A. And so, of course, they had to call it the Great American Revolution.
Yeah, and I think I appreciate that the name works on multiple levels. So I think if it's all right for me to jump back into the history of how we got to that ride to begin with.
Jump away.
So one of the Disney rides you haven't yet mentioned, or at least haven't yet given a full episode to, is the Matterhorn, which opened in 1959 and was, even though Disney is not really thought of as like a roller coaster theme park, it has some, but especially like my whole time growing up, that was never thought of as like the roller coaster theme park. But when Disney built that, it was the first roller coaster to use tubular steel as the design structure. And so up until then, really, it was pretty much just wooden coasters. And so the Matterhorn was this big step towards building steel coasters that could let you do a lot more. And so Disney opens that in 1959. 1975, Knott's Berry Farm, just down the road from Disney, a theme park that is woefully underappreciated.
I agree.
Has a lot of history and a lot of firsts that people don't realize it had anymore. 1975, they become the first theme park to have a modern roller coaster that has an inversion. They have Corkscrew, which is just making basically two barrel rolls. It's Corkscrew. The name tells you what it's doing. And
sure,
that is, that's the first modern roller coaster to have inversions. You can find some stuff back in the 20s, and then there's nothing for decades. And subsequently, Knott's got rid of that. It's now located up in Idaho at Silverwood, which is the only reason Idaho's on my I need to go to Idaho list.
Yeah, I'm up in Seattle, and so, Idaho is probably the closest theme park to me, and I've never been there. So
yeah, there's reason one is it has the first modern inversion in a roller coaster. So that's 1975.
One of one.
Yep. But yeah, so that's 1975. That opens around the same time that's getting built. In the massive theme park mecca that Southern California is, SeaWorld was trying to find a way to get into building a park, and basically partnered with the major land developer for the Santa Clarita Valley, which is about half an hour north of LA under ideal conditions. So virtually never half an hour away, but theoretically. Right. And so they basically partnered to build a theme park with the idea that it would gain more attention for the Santa Clarita Valley, and which was a relatively planned community that was trying to continue to expand. And the idea was, we'll build a theme park, it'll get people up here. And so that opened in 1971 with a relatively small roller coaster. And at that point, it wasn't Six Flags, it was its own thing. So the premise of it being that this wizard had found some trolls, and in order for the trolls to survive, they needed vitamin F for fun. And so the wizard made all these rides so that people would come and have fun, and the trolls would survive. So that was their original mascots, which when last I checked, they still exist in the park in exactly one spot, which is an exit sign on the bumper cars.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is a ride close to my heart. In the early 2000s, that was the first ride I was trained to operate when I worked there.
Okay.
Worked there for like 2 years in high school.
Nice.
But yeah, and so Magic Mountain decided to jump in on this whole roller coaster thing with the Great American Revolution, which I appreciate as a name because, number one, it was 1976, so it was the American Revolution. It would be the first roller coaster to have a vertical loop, or first steel coaster, and the first roller coaster to have a vertical loop since the 20s. So it is also both, it literally makes a revolution on the ride, and it really was this revolution in roller coaster design to actually bring vertical loops into it.
So it's not just a clever name.
Or I'd say it's a very clever name.
Okay, good point.
That's what I appreciate about it, was the realization as a kid eventually of like how many levels this name works on.
Yeah, so it opened May 8th, 1976. It cost $2 million to build, which in 1976 money is a pretty decent chunk of change.
Yeah, the designer was Werner Stegel, who also worked on stuff like Son of Beast and Millennium Force and King Dakar. And then it was actually, the whole thing was manufactured in Germany, shipped over, and then reassembled. And it's very weird to see, or to me, it's very weird to see a roller coaster being assembled, because you end up having a period of time where it's just like laid out with all the pieces spread out so that they know where everything is. While I was working there, they built a couple roller coasters, and it would be weird to go through parts of the parking lot and they just have a whole roller coaster in pieces out in part of the parking lot so they could build it up. But so this was manufactured by Schwarzkopf, which actually has built a lot of roller coasters, including a bunch at various parks that you've already talked about. So like they built 2 roller coasters for Lagoon. The Super Duper Looper, which you mentioned which came up on the Hershey Park episode. And actually, they just put in a Wildcat at the Washington State Fair.
No way.
2021, yeah. So, prominent name.
Have not ridden the Wildcat. I haven't been to the Washington State Fair in a few years. I usually just ride the big wooden roller coaster when I go. But
now you've got another to check out.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah, and I was going to say one other interesting bit to this. So actually, the year after it opened, my mom started working there as a ride operator.
Oh, so you were a legacy.
Somewhat, yeah. I think it's the kind of theme park where everybody in the late teens to early 20s works there for a little bit.
Yeah.
And so actually, I asked her about kind of what she remembered on this to get a bit more detail. And so like her first day, she was working like the kiddie rides. Shows up for work, and they're like, all right, we're going over to Revolution. And they put everybody onto Revolution to warm up the ride. And so she went to like pull down the lap bar, and like, oh, no, we don't do that. And so they rode Revolution, no restraints.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and it's this fascinating bit because again, it does have a loop. It is terrifying, but it was like it's so well designed. Like she's basically like we held on, but they didn't use the restraints, which I think had to deal with like I think it added an extra step to like the warm up process if you wanted to use the restraints, and it was faster, so they just didn't bother.
So it wasn't like them trying to be daredevils or anything.
No. This is just like that was the procedure, or a hazing thing, which my mom has never figured out that's what it was theoretically. But yeah, I think for her it kind of set this bar for it of how smooth it was, and she described it like she was a gymnast in high school, of going through that loop felt like that. And so actually one of the things they would later do is add over-the-shoulder restraints, which she really didn't like because it made for this rougher ride. And really, riding a roller coaster with no restraints should be the smoothest ride you ever get from that roller coaster.
Yeah, but that also sounds horrifying.
Yeah.
I mean, even just riding something with an inversion with just a lap bar sounds horrifying to me. I can't imagine. Like, I want to be as strapped in as possible if I'm going upside down.
I think it's a great physics experiment there.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, as you mentioned, the over-the-shoulders weren't put in until 1992. And so, yeah, up until then, it was just the lap bar. But in 1979, which is when Magic Mountain was purchased by Six Flags, and they changed the name to La Revolucion in honor of the Mexican Revolution. And then in 1988, it was changed again to just Revolution. And if you think that's the end of the name changes, you're wrong. Because there's more coming.
Yeah, they did this a lot.
So it says that in 1992, they added the shoulder restraints to prevent guests from standing up. Maybe if your mom told you any stories or anything, like, was that a thing that was happening?
No stories that she has on that. I don't know if that was just them being overly worried, because Magic Mountain had a very rough series of years in the late 70s and the early 80s in terms of accidents happening. So
Do tell.
In 78, they had what they called Eagle's Flight, sort of that standard bucket ride across the park that a lot of places had, and it feels like very few places have now.
Like a gondola kind of thing? Like a Skyliner? Okay.
Yeah, like Disney had the buckets that they got rid of. Magic Mountain had Eagle's Flight. All of those kind of disappeared around the same time in early to mid-90s, but in 78, they had a newlywed couple in one that I think the claim is that they were rocking it. It came off the wire and fell to the ground. I think it killed one and injured the other.
That's my nightmare.
Yeah. And then they had... Magic Mountain also has I guess now I don't think it works as one, but it had been a wooden racing coaster called Colossus, which they've redone. And shortly after they'd opened that, and they had this great slogan of "I survived Colossus," because it's this big roller coaster. And the slogan "I survived Colossus" stops working when someone doesn't.
God.
And so they had a woman fly off the roller coaster.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And so you had the couple of these relatively high profile ride accidents happen. They did also at one point use the slogan "Bring your whole gang," I believe. And people did. And it sort of resulted in police having to sweep the entire park to get everybody out and get the employees out safely.
So was it like Bloods and Crips coming in?
I don't think it was them, but I'm not sure who it was. I have heard tale of someone that had a knife and a cane. So
was he a ninja?
I'm not fully sure, but it's definitely. But yeah, so they had this stretch of rough things happening. So the fact that Revolution without a lap bar, with just a lap bar, made it well through that for another decade and a half, kind of does have me wondering what really prompted it.
Yeah. I mean, since we're on the subject, Revolution is not itself free from incidents. May 31st, 1996, a park employee was hit and killed instantly while attempting to cross the tracks in a boarding station while the train was returning. The investigation determined she slipped and fell into a 4-foot pit below, crossing the side where passengers exit over to the opposite side.
Yeah, I have always suspected that strongly impacted the training I got when I worked there.
I'm sure.
Because I worked there about 5 years later, and one of the things that we were trained on was track crossing procedure, which I worked with bumper cars. So the instructions that in that training, I was trained to always cross through a car to reach the other side, which is not how bumper cars work. But I also did see someone basically fired on the spot because he went to go talk to one of our leads that was at a different location and was stationed at one of the roller coasters. He came up the exit, hopped over the track to talk to the lead, and the lead is basically like, you are going to be fired for that. It was very much a zero tolerance thing.
I could see why.
Yeah, because they had certainly had that happen, and they were very focused on safety. Because if you are a park whose main thing is the rides, if people have concerns about the rides, that really messes with whether or not people will show up. So they definitely took it seriously. And the fact that I was trained for bumper cars where you cannot cross through one car and reach the other side of the track, I have always figured was them being very careful to make sure that the training was very specific on that to prevent another accident. Because effectively, in the case on Revolution, what should have happened is you wait until the train comes in, and then while the train's sitting there, then you cross through it, because then you can't fall into the track at all.
That makes sense. It's not something I ever thought about, but yeah, I mean, trying to cross tracks that are, zigzagged and pieced together when there's plenty of spaces for your foot to slide through, it's a dangerous game.
Yeah, especially when at some point a train will show up.
Right, yeah.
I think it's why they generally point out that the accidents that Magic Mountain has had generally have been someone was someplace they shouldn't have been.
Mm-hmm.
Where they have had incidents of someone loses a hat and it's like, I'm going to go try and get the hat, and hops back into areas that they shouldn't be.
Yeah.
And roller coaster trains move fast.
And they're heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you either want to be the park with no accidents or the park with all the accidents and just be like Action Park and just be like, yeah, we don't give a shit. Come on down.
I don't know if you can have an action park in this day and age, which is probably for the best.
I mean, maybe now, maybe not 2 years ago.
Yeah, we may have looped back around in.
Yeah. Another incident that happened on Revolution was in 2015. So just about, 10 years ago now. A 10-year-old girl riding the roller coaster was found breathing but unconscious after returning to the station. She was rushed to a nearby hospital and died the following day. According to the coroner's office, she died of natural causes unrelated to the ride. No autopsy was performed at the request of the family, so the world may never know.
Yeah, that one's somewhat similar. I don't know if that kind of evaluation also covers things like various rides have had it where some amount of the G-forces or something can cause issues for some people. I think it might have been an aneurysm that someone had on Goliath at one of Magic Mountain's other rides. Where I think it's one of the things where it's just like, that is sort of a trigger that you may not know is there. So it's more of someone susceptible rather than the ride is dangerous.
Right, yeah. I mean, I've seen videos of people passing out on roller coasters, and especially like I don't know what the ride is called, but the one that basically is just a giant rubber band that they pull down and then let go. I see videos of people passing out on those things all the time.
Yeah, those things look terrifying.
I've seen enough of the videos where one side snaps and the other side swings around like a friggin' broken yo-yo, and I'm good with that. That's not on my bucket list.
I think a lot of those are the portable rides as well.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Which actually, some years back in like 2016, 2017, somewhere around there, when there was the solar eclipse, I actually went to a county fair to see the solar eclipse. And when I was getting there, I found out from an employee that the company that ran all the attractions had been the same company that was running a ride that like 3 months previous in Ohio and it was just like, everyone sits on the side and it rotates where it's like seats of like 4. And one of the sets of 4 seats came off.
Oh my God.
And I was basically told, it's like, yeah, so basically every agency that monitors this is here right now. And it's like, realistically, the rides here are the safest they'll ever be.
Right, yeah. Like, that should make me feel better, but weirdly it doesn't.
Yeah, it sort of meant like, okay, actually, I'm not worried about the rides now. Because right now they're being very careful. They weren't in the point where they'd gotten lax with safety.
Yeah, I mean, it's like going to a neighborhood where there's lots of police presence. You're like, I feel safe because they're here, but I also don't feel safe because they need to be here.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance.
Right.
It's kind of like I remember Thunder Mountain had an accident, something around like early 2000s, I think. And the line for Thunder Mountain was great after that. And my logic was, they're going to be really careful about this. But like, there were several years where like this line should be longer and isn't.
Yeah, it's like it's cool, but I'm nervous. Like, why is it so short? Yeah,
But yeah, the cables have always worried me more than a proper rail.
yeah, and I've stood next to those rides and seen them like lift off the ground too. No, thank you. I mean, speaking of G-force, you mentioned this has a G-force of 4.9, whatever that means. I'm not an engineer, or I don't know what that means, but it seems fast. I don't know what the scale is.
It's 1G is Earth gravity.
Okay, this is about 5 times that.
Correct.
This also has a let's see, the highest point is 113 feet, and the drop is 83 feet. That's a pretty significant drop.
Yeah, and it's one of the nice things about sort of how this is laid out. Magic Mountain does live up to half of its name. It is not, to my knowledge, magic, but it definitely is, if not mountainous, at least steeply hilled. And so this is sort of built around the mountain, which sort of helps a bit with that you never feel that. For a lot of it, you don't feel that far off the ground, because as you're going up, you're going up along the hill and coming back down on it.
Yeah, and you're also surrounded by trees.
Yes, it's what's interesting with the old footage before it had the trees, because with the trees, especially they do Magic Mountain does Fright Fest, which is their Halloween stuff, and at least for parts of that have been that Revolution runs in the dark. And
fun.
Going through the trees in darkness at night is one of the coolest things that they would do with that, because you can just kind of feel, the trees really are pretty close up on the track, because they really have let that sort of grow around it in a way that a lot of other roller coasters don't have, either because they were already put someplace meant to be flat, or they've been kept clear.
Yeah, I was watching some of the video, and I mean, we'll talk about the ride mechanics itself in a little bit, but like, as a tall person, I'd be like scared to put my hands up, just be worried I'd hit a tree branch and lose half my fingers or something.
I feel like it'd probably be good, because I think they keep it clear, at least from that. One of the other rides at the park did have something that I feel is unjustly blamed on the ride, because it did have a collision with a tree. But in the defense of the ride was always taking the same path. The tree fell into Ninja suspended roller coaster, which, not a great day to be on it, but also like, it wasn't like the ride malfunctioned. The tree malfunctioned.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, you could make an argument that the ride shouldn't have been so close to the tree, but it's not something you expect.
It was good until the tree fell.
Exactly, yeah. So in 2002, the American Coaster Enthusiasts, or ACE, awarded a plaque to Revolution as a coaster landmark, because it is the first modern vertical looping roller coaster. But in 2005, parts of Revolution were dismantled to make way for the new roller coaster Tatsu. And then it reopened May 11th, 2006 with Tatsu at the same time. Have you been on Tatsu?
Yeah, I actually went on Tatsu. They did an annual pass sort of special event before it had opened. And so a friend and I went. We got there, and it wasn't a massive amount of crowd, so everybody was in line for like the front row, and we just realized we can just get on like row 8. There's no line. Let's just do that. And we just kept riding it, of getting on the ride, riding it, getting back off, getting in line for a new row we hadn't ridden yet, until by the tail end of it, the front of the line was down to short. Because a lot of people just rode it once or twice and then left. And so by the time we'd circled around like 10 times, the front of the line was open. And so we rode it from every row possible that day.
That's cool.
And then about like 2 extra times, and then then we hit our limit.
Yeah, I can see that. But so is Revolution like shorter now?
I think it's mostly the same layout. There's a couple, like I think it may have been a slight adjustment, but I don't think it changed much in terms of the length.
Okay.
Like I've seen that as well, and I can't actually tell what they changed.
Interesting.
Like it did if it involved any rerouting, it wasn't a significant one.
Gotcha. Okay. So in 2016, in celebration of the roller coaster's 40th anniversary, they added new trains that were red and white, and these trains look like they remind me a lot of Evel Knievel. I don't know if that's intentional, but they definitely have that like white look with the the stripes and stars, and it feels very Evel Knievel inspired.
I can see that angle,
but there's no like mention specifically of it, and I don't think Evel Knievel probably had anything to do with it. But
I feel like they were both chasing the same like aesthetic of this is going to scream America.
You're probably right. That's probably the case. Yeah, because there also was eagles on the front of each car. And the track was also painted white and blue, so it was very, very America. As far as the cars go, there are 2 side-by-side, and then 5 cars total in a train. So each car train holds 10 people. The new trains were also fitted with lap and calf bar restraints, replacing the over-the-shoulder design. So they went back to just a lap bar.
That part is a great decision. I haven't ridden the newest version of it, but honestly, the fact that learning that recently has definitely motivated me on I do need to get back, because that is a welcome change.
Well, yeah, their reasoning was they say that it would provide additional airtime and a more comfortable experience.
Yeah,
those 2 things don't go together in my book.
It's one of a couple of their rides that have over the shoulder or has had over the shoulder restraints that was more known for kind of shaking you around a bit. So it's a lot more of, with it not being as smooth a ride as it could be. I think my brother had this problem with it, that he just kind of bounced around in the restraint, and it's a lot of hits to the head, basically. Oh. Because you're kind of bouncing between the sides of the over-the-shoulder restraints.
My brother had kind of the opposite problem on Incredicoaster, where it was like one click was too loose, and so he clicked it one more time, and then he was like, kept banging his shoulder against it. And he said he felt like his shoulder was going to get knocked out of socket. And so I think that's the problem with the over-the-shoulder ones, is they click, and it's like click, click, click. And so it is kind of sometimes one click is too big and one click is too small. So I don't know if there's a smoother way to do it. Again, I'm not an engineer, but
there's some that have a different. I've had some that have a different locking mechanism that is not as much of like a ratchet. So there's some options to it, but I think the other part to this is not all. I think a lot of steel coasters feel very, very smooth, and Revolution, I think just because it's an older steel roller coaster, like it's a fairly early roller coaster as far as steel coasters go. Certainly in the past, certainly like for what it would have been in the 90s and 2000s when I was riding it most, was a bit rougher. And so if you didn't fully fill out the over-the-shoulder restraint, it could be it could bounce you around a bit.
A little jostling.
Yeah, which wouldn't be that bad if there wasn't like 2 giant things on either side of your head to hit into.
Yeah. But yeah, like I said earlier, just having a lap bar and going upside down, I don't know. I don't know if I trust that. I mean, there's no stories of anything of people falling out, but my
It's
brain
all
would just be
physics.
like, "You're the first."
It's all physics. That's the cool part about it. It's the same deal as taking like there's a standard physics experiment, which is just like a bucket of water on a string, and if you swing it fast enough, the water stays in the bucket. You can swing it over your head.
Or like a loop-de-loop when you play mini golf. Like the ball stays up. I don't know. I know. I'm just being paranoid.
Yeah, I think that's what makes it work as such a thrilling thing. Is it feels like that shouldn't happen. Right. I think actually there's an old commercial from around when it opened that has a line in it of "Man was not meant to do that."
That's reassuring.
Yeah.
But so when it reopened in 2016, it was now called the New Revolution. And the big selling point of the New Revolution was that riders were given the option to wear Samsung Gear VR headsets. This would give you a 3D virtual world themed to a fighter jet, where riders flew through a futuristic city as co-pilots battled alien invaders. You never did the VR now, right?
No.
You haven't ridden it as New Revolution.
I have not, although it really feels like they were trying to do some sort of new Coke thing of, we're going to do this and then switch it back and you'll be glad we did.
I mean, yeah, spoiler alert, that's what they ended up doing. Because like we said at the top, it's now called the New Revolution Classic, which is basically just they got rid of the VR.
Yeah, and I feel like the point of VR is to simulate is to fill in for where you're not going to be able to do stuff like move around. And I feel like if you have a real roller coaster in 3 dimensions, you don't need the VR.
Yeah, that should be enough.
Yeah, like I would expect that. I have done things where I have VR to make it seem like I'm on a roller coaster when I'm not. Like that direction makes perfect sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
There's tons of stuff that do that.
Yeah, and we were talking before we hit record that we both agreed that the VR, not only is it just extra, it's just doing too much, but we would both worry about, as you put it, getting Fabio'd and just having a bird fly straight into your face and you have no idea it's coming.
Yeah, or just having this extra weight on your face as you're swinging around through stuff.
That's a good point, too.
Granted, with Revolution would be less bad. I think Revolution doesn't make as many abrupt kind of twists because they were really trying to set up having a loop for the first time. So it's not as rough on the movement in that sense. Like I think a lot of modern coasters can do stuff like you really quickly, you kind of make the turn and you go into a loop. Revolution really lines you up very, very directly of, we are on a perfectly straight path down into the loop because we want to get this right. So having stuff strapped to your face seems like it would be less bad, but it's unnecessary.
But they kept it around for a while. In fact, they switched up the stories that they had on February 8th, 2017. They announced that the New Revolution would offer a new experience known as the New Revolution Galactic Attack, which was the world's first mixed virtual reality experience powered by Oculus VR. So apparently they switched from Samsung to Oculus. The experience was centered around an alien invasion in space. As riders crest the lift hill, the setting changed into an intergalactic battle seen from the cockpit of a fighter spaceship. Okay.
Yeah. That's partially what's frustrating is it feels weirdly generic.
Yeah.
Like I would have less of an issue if they'd figured out a way to do something that felt like it was. You're basically on a mountain, and they set it. At least one of them, they just set it in just like a flat city, and I'm like, I don't know why you've made these decisions. Like you were leaning away from having a consistent theming or setting or something.
Yeah, and I mean the first one sounded like it was also about shooting aliens, so this doesn't sound like it was like a huge jump into something new. But yeah, I don't understand why, like you said, an alien invasion is just very generic.
Yeah, I'm somewhat curious about the Christmas version that they did,
Yeah, November 18th, 2017, Six Flags debuted Holiday in the Park, dubbed Santa's Wild Sleigh Ride, and it placed riders in Santa's sleigh as he delivered presents to a snowy town.
Yeah, I went looking to see, because you can find, at least, I honestly don't know which one, because the two are so similar. I'm presuming it's the first one, but you can find video that is what the VR is seeing, as well as a shot of the, I think it's not a forward, I think it's a backwards facing shot. But you can see basically what's going on the ride versus what they're seeing in VR. For the standard VR they did, and I could not find the sleigh one, and I'm kind of curious what they did with that.
Yeah, it's interesting because the first two sound almost like they're like a video game, where it's like, you're in this galactic battle and you're fighting off aliens, where this one, you're just kind of along for the ride. But also, why would Santa be doing a loop-de-loop?
I mean, I'm pretty sure that, do they do one in Earth Saves Christmas?
They might. I can't say for sure, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Like, I actually feel like I have seen Santa's sleigh have a vertical loop.
I've definitely seen it do a barrel roll. But yeah, I'm not sure about a vertical loop. But again, I wouldn't be surprised. In 2018, the virtual reality headsets were moved to Lex Luthor Drop of Doom, and the ride was officially dubbed Classic Revolution Mode. Now, that's not it for the name changes, because for a short time in November of 2018, the new revolution was renamed Red Sox Revolution because the LA Dodgers lost the World Series to the Boston Red Sox. And apparently there was some kind of bet that the park had with Six Flags New England. I wonder how themed it was. Did people even know? There must have been a sign or something, right?
I feel like it was just done as a social media thing. I can't imagine them spending money on a sign.
That's what I'm saying, yeah. Maybe just a cardboard sign written in Sharpie or something, like Red Sox. Boom.
I know the level of how that park handled actual name changes. I can't imagine them actually putting effort on this one. I worked one of the water rides that we called by the not really the right name for years, because it had one of the flume rides was called Jetstream, and then it was Arrowhead Splashdown because we had a sponsor. I think it was just called Jetstream by everybody the
Arrowhead
whole
Water.
time. Yeah. So I'm that was an actual name change that was money changed hands somewhere, and it still was kind of half-hearted. So I'm I cannot imagine that they actually sprung for money, for a sign on that.
Yeah, for a temporary name change. So the actual ride itself, let's talk about that a little bit. So you get in this car. Again, it looks very Evel Knievel. It kind of has that rocket ship, roller coaster look. And you're immediately going up a chain lift. And it's a pretty long one. And again, you're there's trees literally right next to you as you're going up on either side. And I can only think any other roller coasters I can think of that are just in the middle of a forest like that are at small parks. So for Magic Mountain Magic Mountain's got to be one of the biggest Six Flags parks, right?
It's definitely the most in terms of number of roller coasters. I'm not sure if it's largest in terms of area, but I think it's probably one of their flagship theme parks at this point, which is amusing because it's a Texas-based company. That's why it's called Six Flags. It's the Six Flags that it was named after the Six Flags that have flown over the state of Texas.
Did know that. I wouldn't have remembered that until you said it, but now that you say it, I do remember that.
Yeah, I think they try to downplay that because one of those Six Flags is the flag of the Confederacy.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure if any of the Texas parks feature all Six Flags, but definitely the Six Flags I've been to just have pennants.
Right. Yeah.
As, those are our flags. We're not dealing with what specific historical flags are involved here. Magic Mountain has been how Six Flags has competed with Cedar Point at points for which theme park has the most roller coasters.
Yeah, and like I don't know, I just feel like Magic Mountain. I just hear about it constantly, and maybe it's just because I'm on the West Coast. But it's always in TV shows and movies.
That's the other big thing, it's conveniently located to be in a lot of things.
That's true. Yeah, it's right by LA.
Yeah, so it's like the opening to Step by Step has a theme park in it, and it is Magic Mountain. And they actually remove. I think on that one they remove the parking lot and put in an ocean so that it looks like it's by the ocean, and it's not. It shows up in a lot of things, one way or the other. They were open to doing a lot of filming, and so stuff films there, and it pops up a lot. I know when I was a kid, the Nickelodeon show Wild and Crazy Kids
I remember that show.
had an episode where they used one of the other roller coasters where I think it was everybody had like pitchers of water, and it was going to be whatever team had the most water after riding Colossus, the big wooden roller coaster.
That's a good challenge. I just today learned that the Three Ninjas movie is called Three Ninjas High Noon at Mega Mountain. For 41 years, well, I guess I don't know when the movie came out, but since the movie came out, I thought it was called High Noon at Magic Mountain. And I just assumed it was filmed at Magic Mountain. But it was actually filmed at Elitch Gardens in Denver.
Yeah, there's a lot of things where I'll be watching and be like, I think we're using some Magic Mountain stuff here.
Yeah. The vicinity to LA definitely makes a lot of sense.
I would say, actually, I like this. This is an example of how, because this feels very thrown in. There's a sort of American Graffiti knockoff movie called Van Nuys Boulevard, which was trying to cash in on just like it's a movie about kids cruising along the roads kind of stuff. And it's movies following a bunch of different kids. One, for various reasons, they all end up arrested. And so like they don't know each other until they meet like in a holding cell in jail. And then one of them's like, hey, let's all go to Magic Mountain tomorrow. And the next 10 minutes of the movie is just 10 minutes of them at Magic Mountain. And then it goes back to the rest of the plot. And it's just like, there was no reason for that. There's no lead up to that. It's just in there because they could.
They needed to get to 90 minutes, I guess.
I presume it. So there's definitely things like that which are just weirdly incorporated.
Yeah. Well, since we're on the subject, and we mentioned it a little bit earlier, the New Revolution has been in a couple pop culture things. Most notably, it was in the 1983 movie Vacation, which a lot of people probably know. It was the whippersnapper that they go on that made John Candy throw up. And I just watched that clip earlier today. I wanted to watch both that movie and another movie we're going to talk about in a second, but I didn't get time. So I just watched the last scene. And this, I'm a childless man, but one of my classic dad jokes is just quoting that whenever I get on a roller coaster, just being like, oh, I had a bad experience on this ride last time I went on it. I threw up.
That one is fun because basically Magic Mountain is playing Disneyland.
Mm-hmm.
To the point that it's very clearly a Disney-like character that shows up at the end as the park owner. Because Disneyland didn't feel like being part of that, and Magic Mountain would.
Well, and the character's name is Roy, which was Walt Disney's brother. I feel like that wasn't a coincidence.
No, I mean, the whole look of the character.
Yeah,
it's really clear
the
what
mustache and everything. He's clearly a Walt Disney stand-in. And I also wonder if Wall-E was supposed to be like Walt, because it's Wall-E World. I don't know. But yeah, the other movie, 1977 film Roller Coaster, which I know nothing about. So you'll have to fill me in on this one.
Had the misfortune, in a sense, of coming out in early June of 1977, which would have meant that it came out right as Star Wars became super big.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so Roller Coaster, I have had the good fortune, actually, I've seen it in theater, was notable. First of all, it used Sense-Around, which was one of the 70s many gimmicked movie things was the idea of basically having like low frequency noise to try to make it feel like you're like feeling extra vibration.
Oh, interesting.
So the movie Earthquake used that as well. They did it for like 4 or 5 movies. And so the premise of the movie, and I think this is a great one for you because it's very theme park heavy.
Sure. Yeah.
If the title didn't tip anyone off that the movie Roller Coaster is about a lot of theme parks. It stars George Segal as like an investigator. It also has Henry Fonda and an early Helen Hunt role.
Oh.
And also an uncredited appearance by Steve Guttenberg.
The Goots.
Yeah, it's great. It starts off at Ocean View Amusement Park, which was an amusement park in Norfolk, Virginia, that actually closed in 1978. And it starts off with a bomb being planted on a roller coaster. And so that when the bomb goes off, it breaks part of the rail and the roller coaster fully derails in some amazing special effect shots in there. And so that's the opening of the movie.
Is it just terrorism, or what's the reasoning?
Basically, yeah. Yes, terrorism with some ransoms.
Okay.
The next one is actually not a specific park shown, but just that there's been a fire on a dark ride in Pittsburgh, which probably is actually that there's a theme park. There's 3 theme parks in this movie. There is a 4th theme park that pulled out from this movie once they saw the script, but had initially been in talks to do it, and that was Kennywood.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Kennywood saw the script and was like, "We are out on this." And they are just right outside Pittsburgh. And then there's basically a meeting of amusement park companies, and they get a ransom demand. And so you have George Segal as like the investigator for all this stuff. And they basically get this ransom demand, and so there's supposed to be a bring me the money here. These are the instructions, which is all set at King's Dominion in Virginia. So you have a whole chunk of like him traveling around King's Dominion with a briefcase because he has to make the drop, and he's getting various instructions and stuff like go ride the roller coaster. And it's actually fairly cool because they do a lot of like here's footage from the roller coaster. So like that is a nice selling point. It's just you get a lot of like on ride footage. And then the last part, the sort of the climax of this is you get threats in advance about something happening in the Southern California area, and he realizes that it's going to be the opening of Revolution on the 4th of July. And so the whole climax of the movie is they know the target, or they think they know the target at least, and they are at Magic Mountain trying to prevent an unknown person from carrying out some sort of unknown attack.
Okay. Is it good?
I definitely enjoy it. I think a lot of the appeal is it's a lot of footage in theme parks, and some cool effects. Actually, it does involve the line someone yells on the train on Revolution of "Here comes the loop," which we've definitely quoted for roller coasters subsequently with people that I have had watch this. But I think it's a fun sort of disaster thriller kind of movie, and it's a lot of time in theme parks. It's a nice little glimpse. So actually, like you talk about, Revolution now looks so cool because it's surrounded by these giant trees. Revolution at that time does not really have the trees because that hill was a lot more bare at the time that the ride opened. So it's actually also it's a neat sort of way to look at, especially both what Magic Mountain looked like at the time and also what King's Dominion looked like at the time. It's a good snapshot because it spends a lot of time in both parks.
All right. I'll definitely have to check it out. I'm sure it's probably available to rent at least, if not just watch free somewhere.
Yeah, it should be somewhere. And I was personally just glad to see it on when I saw it on the big screen, I ended up seeing stuff that I had not seen noticed in the movie before, of spotting things of like, oh, I can actually see that the maintenance people have the little troll mascots as like badges on their uniforms. Like, I did not notice that before.
That's fun.
Yeah, I think there's a Blu-ray of it now.
Okay. So back on the ride, once you get to this first hill, it's a short little crest here, and then you get sent downwards and kind of curves to the right, and the whole time you're very close to the ground, and then it like pops back up, and then you get this nice view. I don't know what city this is in the background, but just through the trees, you get a nice view for
Santa Clarita.
Santa Clarita. Okay, you get a nice view for, I don't know, about half a second, and then you're thrown back down, and you go down, and then this is not the loop. I thought that was the loop right away, but it pops back up, and then here's the loop. Yep. Or here comes the loop, I guess.
Yeah. It works so well.
Yeah. And so, yeah, it's a big, giant loop. And then what's really interesting about this ride is it comes back around and goes through the middle of the loop, which I can't think of another ride that does that.
Yeah, I know that there's one somewhere that has like loops that actually like interlock, but I'm not aware of another one that does this kind of like come right back through the loop like that.
Yeah, it's you go through around the loop and then go down and through a tunnel, and the tunnel's kind of random because
I think it's because there's hill there basically.
Yeah,
that's part of it is because you're on a hill. It's basically making a turn. Like, well, we either remove the hill or we just dig through.
I guess they decided to dig through. Yeah, there's no like appeal to it. There's no theming or anything. It's just this very short little tunnel, and you go through that, and then you loop around, and you go through the middle of the loop. And you're also, at this point, you're obviously higher off the ground, but you're very close to the rest of the park. You could just kind of look off to the side and see the park, and it's right there. You're not, like my mind immediately compares this to Incredicoaster, where there's a whole like bay between you and the rest of the park.
No, this is actually like when you come in the entrance. The park is basically set up so when you come sort of through the entrance, the first thing you see really is this loop, and there's a fountain sort of in front of it. But basically, this is the front thing of entering the park.
Yeah, I mean, this is like the focal point. This is, the big e-ticket ride, if you will. And, it only has the one loop, and that's really the big selling point. But after you go through the middle of the loop, you just kind of curve back around, get a little bit of an angle on the car as you come around this last corner, but then you just coast back into the station. It's not a long ride at all. It's 79 seconds, I think. Oh, no, this says 2 minutes and 12 seconds.
I'm thinking a lot is lift hill time.
That could be. Yeah, I mean, Wikipedia says 79 seconds. Coasterpedia says 2 minutes and 12 seconds. I feel like Coasterpedia, that's kind of their niche, so I feel like they probably know better. But, I mean, this video I'm watching is 3 minutes and 5 seconds, so 2:12 seems right. So I guess that actually is a pretty good length.
Yeah, it's been overshadowed, even within Magic Mountain, with a lot of the newer roller coasters. But you don't get to a lot of those newer coasters without this.
It's I wonder if there's going to be any more name changes coming up anytime soon. I don't know it's funny that you brought up like New Coke and now it's called the New Revolution.
Yeah, the other thing that I wonder about, because it does mention like the VR experience was taken to the Lex Luthor drop ride. That ride is on the side of Superman at Magic Mountain, which was briefly notable for was the first coaster in at least the US to hit 100 miles an hour. And it's just you go straight up, and then you go right, and then you just reverse back into the station. And so first to hit 100 miles an hour, and was it's a 400 foot tall tower, which they've just announced that is closing, or they announced last year that it's closing. So the Lex Luthor thing that has the VR is attached to it. So if they're still doing the VR over there, I do wonder if that means that if that ride closes, if they bring VR back, or if they're done with it.
Yeah, would it be like the New Revolution 2, or like I don't know what you would call it at that point. The new Revolution.
The newer Revolution.
Newer Revolution. There you go.
Because that leaves room for the newest Revolution in a few more years.
Sure, yeah. And then at some point, it's going to, once we get to like 2076, then it'll be the Tricentennial, and they can call it something else. Okay. Any other like interesting tidbits or personal stories about Revolution you want to share?
I think I've worked all of that in along the way.
Okay. Well, before we go, do you want to plug your podcast and stuff?
Yeah. So you can find me at theoldswitcheroo.com or the Old Switcheroo anywhere you get podcasts. The basic premise of it is me and my longtime friend JMO are going through all of the games that are available on the Nintendo Switch Online retro service, which is now called Nintendo Classics. They've switched the name, as we cover name switching. And so those are there's over 250 games on there from NES, SNES, Game Boy Advance, Nintendo 64, and somehow they also have Sega Genesis games on there, which does feel a bit weird, but we'll take it. And so every episode we go through one or two games on there as we slowly are working through those and sort of trying to figure out which of those games are worth checking out still and which games not so much.
I mean, I'll tell you, I play a lot of Earthbound on there. All right. Well, thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me on.
This was fun. This was definitely not something I had on my radar, so it was cool to have you pick something that I probably wouldn't have picked otherwise.
Yeah, like I said, it's a roller coaster that I still think is a good ride, but is so much more significant when you look at its history versus just where it is now.
Yeah, and plus it's just its place in pop culture, being in those two movies. All right, well, thanks again. And thank you at home for listening, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Your attention, please. This episode of Wild Mouse has concluded. Make sure to rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast player, and follow us on social media at Wild Mouse Podcast. Don't forget to visit the gift shop at wildmousepodcast.com. For exclusive bonus content, become a premium pass holder at patreon.com/wildmousepodcast. We hope you enjoyed your time and will visit us again soon. Thank you and good night.